Okay, let's go ahead and call to order. Would you like to read the roll?
Commissioners Brown,
Present.
Fuller, Harris,
Present.
Herr,
Present.
Madrano,
Present.
Vice Chair Little, Vice Chair Little.
Present.
Oh, thank you.
Present.
Chairman Mercy.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, great. Oh, I apologize, just lost the agenda there. Okay, let's go ahead and have the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's see, Commissioner Brown, would you like to lead us?
I'd be happy to. Let me let's see if I can get everybody here in the nursing home to stand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
For which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, for all,
with continued justice.
with justice for all. Thank you. It was very complicated for me to get through that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll head into the consent calendar and approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
Move to accept.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Brown. Was there a second?
Second, by Harris.
Second by Harris. Any objection to adopting the motion?
Nope.
Okay, great. I am switching over to my laptop now, so I'm going to end it on my phone.
It passes unanimously with Commissioner Fuller not in attendance.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's go ahead and start with a report from the Sheriff's Department.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you. Happy holidays. I am Deputy Lawrence Green. I'm your Community Relations Deputy for Lancaster Sheriff's Station. I've been on law enforcement for about 7 years now. I've been at the station for about 5. Today we'll be going over our stats for the city of Lancaster. And feel free to ask any questions as I'm going through them. Also, I'm here with Captain Leckervane for Lancaster Sheriff Station as well, who will be going in a little further when I get to the vehicle thefts. So bear with me while we get through this. We're going to start with the Ms. Stenbach. Do you want me to start with the Comp City stats or the Crime Commission report? I don't know if you wanted to go in a particular order.
Both are ready to go.
Okay, let's start with the Crime Commission report. Let's see here. Awesome. All right, we're going to start with our burglary section. Obviously, on the second slide, it shows where our sources are being distributed via social media, Facebook Live, Zoom meetings, and town hall meetings as well. Let's go ahead and head on to the next slide, please. We'll start with our burglaries. Our total burglaries will be 53. They're down from September, which was 58. Residential burglaries were at 15, also down from September, which was at 22. And commercial burglaries are slightly up at 38. They were lower in September at 36. Next slide. Robberies. We have a total robberies of 27 for the month of October. It's going to be up. In September, they were at 17. Armed will be 12. Also up. It was down in September at 9. Strong arm 15. Also, it was lower in September at 8. In the month of October, our community events consisted of Haunts at the Hangar. We had our business before breakfast. So the kids got to dress up in their costumes while the deputies got to interact with them. So that was pretty cool for the month of October. Let's move on to our comp stats for the city of Lancaster. All right, we're going to start with our homicide slide. We're going to be averaging around 3, but we're going to be down more. It's going to be more around 2 for a closer number. For rapes, which is our next slide, we're going to be averaging around 7, holding at 7. Robberies are going to be up. They're going to be averaging 21, but we're more around the 26, 27 category. Aggravated assaults, we're going to be down, averaging 68, but more around 64, 63 in that category. Domestic violence aggravated assaults are actually down quite a bit, which is actually very good. Averaging 9, but we're around, realistically, around 3. Burglaries, they're going to be up, averaging 47. More realistic number is going to be around 52. Larceny and thefts, this is going to be up a lot, averaging 97, averaging around 106, 107. Grand theft vehicles, and then we're going to hold on this page for a minute, okay, because I'm going to have Captain Leckervane speak on this category, okay. Grand theft vehicles over a period of a year is going to be up. We're averaging 82, but we have around 85, give or take. Captain Leckervane, can you go into a little more detail about the grand theft vehicles, please?
I'm going to trade chairs here real quick since we're operating out of our office. Our grand theft vehicles are significantly higher this year than they've been in the past year or so. There are several factors that are driving that number up, and I'm briefly going to go over some of those, and then I'll tell you what we're doing to combat that, because this is some people on the back end of our operation, not the sheriff's department, but other county agencies, have the opinion that it's not a big deal because it's just property theft. I would argue that that's not true. It's easy to say that until it's your car. And in this town, many folks rely on their vehicle to keep their lives going. They got to get to work. They got to get their kids around town. The loss of their vehicle, or the temporary loss of it, is significant, and it's affecting a lot of folks. One of the major factors that we're looking at right now is the fact that vehicles are being stolen and parts are being taken off of them, specifically catalytic converters. And we've discussed this before, I believe, but catalytic converter theft is driven by the precious metals that are contained in the catalytic converter that actually make them function and help our air quality. The price for those specific metals on the open market is skyrocketed over the last few years, so much so that it's worthwhile for folks to steal them, gather them in bulk, melt down the catalytic converters, and pull those precious metals out so that they can sell them either for reuse or for whatever use they find elsewhere. It would appear that the larger market of that is being driven out of the country. Wherever they're being produced, whether we're buying them from a U.S. manufacturer or they're being produced out of the country, those folks are selling them to automakers. The crooks are cutting them off, selling them through multiple layers, and they're ending up leaving the country so that they can be processed for their metals, and then those metals are back into the market. I'm not sure how to impact that other than to make that precious metal less valuable on the larger scheme. But what we're doing to address that particular portion of it is we have with the city's help, we have some dedicated teams working to identify the folks buying the catalytic converters in the area. And then we're going to be working, it looks like we may be working with a federal agency to impact the large number that are leaving the state through the port. If we can identify where they're going and who they're going to, then the customs folks said they would get involved. And then we would be able to take that portion of it out of the hands of our local prosecution and put it on a federal level. The other portion of the stolen vehicles that is impacting quite heavily is the fact that some of the newer models of Kias and Hyundais and the vans and some of those smaller cars that have push button starts, they have some significant design flaws that make them easy to access and override. And it's to simplify it for folks, it's as simple as hot wiring the car. We have some video from a cooperating witness or a cooperating suspect who explained how he did it. It takes a Bic lighter and a piece of wire with exposed ends in order to jump the circuit, start the car, and be gone. And the one video I watched, he did it in 15 seconds. And because of the way it's positioned in the vehicle, they can button everything back up. So if we happen to stop the vehicle before it's reported stolen, we would not have the obvious signs that the vehicle was stolen like we would in a normal ignition punch or something that we're used to seeing. But we're aware of that. So the deputies are being trained to look for those things. If they stop a vehicle that falls into one of these higher number vehicles that's being stolen that has a push button start, they're looking a little closer at those to see if they've been compromised by the person who's driving the vehicle. What it turns out, and it looks like a lot of those vehicles are being recovered in the area. They're being taken by a small group of individuals who then trade them for housing, drugs, and their normal daily means to other folks who use them for what other nefarious activities they want to use them for. But we are recovering a lot of those in the area. They steal them, use them for a while, then dump them when they believe that we might be onto them already and have them entered into our system. So within a couple of days, we're recovering them. Unfortunately, the victims of that lose the use of their vehicle for that length of time until we can get it back to them. We've undertaken a campaign along with the Task Force for Regional Auto Theft Prevention to provide clubs for folks. It seems like a old school solution to a newer problem, but it really is an old school problem just reemerging in new technology. But if we can harden the target, put a club on a vehicle, it's one more thing that the crook has to work his way through, so it becomes a less attractive target. We're advertising that on our social media platforms. We're getting the word out to folks. Please park your cars in well-lit areas. Don't leave your key fobs in the vehicle, which we've been seeing a lot of. I'm not sure if it was a hard key, folks wouldn't leave it in the car, but for some reason they think leaving the key fob in the vehicle is a good idea. But if we can harden the targets by putting clubs on them, that makes the crook go on to the next one. And we can't stop them all, but we can try to help folks. If they're willing to help themselves and come and get a free club, then we'll help them. Maybe we can avert them being a victim. Is there any questions regarding the auto theft? I know that the spike is alarming to me. We're trying to put as much into it as we can. The enforcement is difficult with the lack of prosecution, but if we can prevent it, it'll be a lot easier than trying to get the DA to change his mind about how he wants to prosecute those things.
Yeah, Captain.
Yes, sir.
Is that true about the catalytic converter? Is that true? There is a price value difference, original manufactured ones and the aftermarket ones. Because I don't know if it's true or not. Somebody said once you replace the aftermarket catalytic converter, and those thieves, and they don't go after aftermarket ones because it's not worth anything, Is that true?
I don't know about that, sir. I'll have to ask about that. That's the first time I heard that, but there are some vehicles that are more likely targets than others because they have more than one catalytic converter on them. Some of the larger trucks, we've had some fleets get hit and had their entire fleet need to be repaired and have catalytic converters replaced because the trucks have multiple catalytic converters. Some of the Toyota Prius models have multiple catalytic converters, so they're more likely more likely victim than other vehicles. Again, what the auto theft guys are telling me when they're talking to folks is the folks that are either don't want to be a victim again or have are trying to prevent it, they're hardening their vehicles. They've shown people that they're actually getting underneath their vehicles and welding on skid plates and some kind of wire for lack of a better description, a wrought iron or rebar cage around their catalytic converter to keep someone from wanting to cut it off. But you can't do that to every vehicle. That would, some of the vehicles, their profile wouldn't allow you to have something hanging underneath it. But the only way to slow that down would be to harden that target a little bit. And the vehicle manufacturers haven't come up with anything, nor has the aftermarket come up with anything that is working properly. But I'll look into your question, sir, and find out if that's true. But I know the cost for replacing the vehicles and the repair is significantly more than the value of the catalytic converter that's stolen. Because these guys are not just unbolting them, they're using a Sawzall or some kind of quick cut device, and they're cutting these things in the middle of the exhaust system, which requires a significant amount of repair.
Thank you.
Hey, Captain, did you say that the clubs are free?
Yes.
The Task Force for Regional Auto Theft Prevention is a state-funded, multi-jurisdictional, multi-agency group. Part of their funding includes prevention activities, and the clubs have proven to be a successful deterrent. So the state has paid for thousands of clubs. If we run out here at the station, all we have to do is call up the trap guys, and they come and they bring us 100 more. So I don't know if we'd ever run out of them. I suppose we would, but I don't know if we'd ever run out of them. But we actually, every time someone comes to the station to get their vehicle released after it's been recovered, we offer them a club. About 10% of the folks take us up on it. I don't know if there's some kind of if there's some kind of image thing that folks don't want to throw out there that they don't want to use a club on their vehicle. I use one on my personal vehicle because I don't drive it every day. So I leave it in the driveway and it has a club on it because I don't want someone taking it.
Maybe we could do something to help promote that program and availability out there through our different community partners.
We can definitely have our community relations team through Deputy Green and through Ali Villalobos. They'll be happy to partner with anybody that wants to help spread the word. We have it posted on all of our platforms and through our civilian advisory committee. They have it posted. I'm fairly certain Ali's already talked with the folks of the city about linking it. I'm not sure if it is, sir, but I believe it is linked to the city's website already.
Okay.
Captain, is it Lecravane? Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Thank you. In part, what we're listening to is the Sheriff's Department and the citizens adjusting to the failure of the District Attorney's Office to prosecute crime. And in the beginning of this, I was thinking that it isn't about the car thefts. That's not the problem. It's the whole broken windows concept of criminal prosecution. That is, the real cost of crime isn't the missing car. It's the fear. It's the creation in a community of untrustworthiness, that you don't trust other people, that you're constantly living in fear. You're constantly looking for ways to adapt to a criminal element that is, in a sense, terrorizing the community. And astonishing to me, of course, and I'll be happy to hear Mr. Sherwood's report on this today, but is the fact that we in Sacramento and in Los Angeles County have an attitude that we're pro-criminal and that bad behavior should be promoted. I'm not sure what's going to take to get that to change, but one of the things that I did think is that maybe the Criminal Justice Commission should make a recommendation that we think that the current hands-off prosecution that exists not only from the change in Sacramento from the law, but also the change in attitude on the part of the District Attorney's Office has created an atmosphere of criminality that affects all of us, whether our car was stolen or not. It affects the way we live. It affects the quality of our life. And frankly, it's outrageous. Anyway, that's my thought.
I would tend to agree with you about that, sir. In monitoring other areas within the county, there's a lot of frustration with the current status of the criminal justice system in Los Angeles County. So much so that if you take Beverly Hills, for example, the Merchant and Citizens Association there decided that they would start funding crime prevention activities in the fact that they're setting up a whole network of cameras, the independent, but would also feed into the law enforcement system. The folks that's their response to the inability of the criminal justice system to be responsive. That's unfortunate because I know many folks over there, and their law enforcement in the city are just as proactive as the city of Lancaster in partnering with us. They invest a lot of money in prevention activities. It's unfortunate that now they have to supplement the city's activities to help combat the crime that should be handled on the back end.
Yeah, I know one of the recent disturbing trends across the country have been these flash mob shoplifting incidents. Without going into detail or anything as to how you respond, because I know we don't want to do that, but locally, are we coordinating with chambers of commerce and business community to help prevent and apprehend anyone who tries to do that here?
We have not actually had conversations with the chamber or with any of the business associations about it. The sheriff's department does have a local and regional plans how to respond to these things from a law enforcement perspective. There's been enough of them now that we've seen successes and some things that have worked really good in tracking these folks down. We have been partnering with the Highway Patrol. We've been in discussion with them about how we would respond to something in this area. Geographically, we have a benefit in this area if something were to occur, because it does appear that almost in all of these instances, the perpetrators are not from the area that they hit. So we can get to places where we could act as choke points in order to identify them, similar to our neighbors in the south who have that same advantage geographically. But there are some techniques that we're going to be employing if that does happen, in order to not just identify the folks that we would take into custody, but anyone who's associated with them and planning on doing this elsewhere.
I wanted to just correct Chairman Mercy in one element. This is not across the nation. This is occurring very specifically in those jurisdictions which have tended to shy away from actual law enforcement.
Well, absolutely. But I mean, in several states where, where in particular the DAs have been part of a national network to push forward those kind of soft policies. Yeah, agree completely, Dr. Brown.
If the commission's okay, I'll turn this back over to Deputy Green and let him finish his report.
Thank you, Captain.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Cap. Okay, let's go on to the next slide for grand theft. After grand theft vehicles, we're on arsons. Arsons are down. We have no arsons for the month of October, which is actually excellent. Here's our hotspots for the month of October. As we look at our hotspots, Sierra Highway, and I want to say around Sierra Highway and J is where probably the darkest hotspot is, but obviously it's going to change. We're about 2 months back, so that will change. And that pretty much ends it for the comp stats for City of Lancaster. Anybody have any questions on that one? If not, we'll be moving on to our LEAPS progress report. Once again, I will no longer be reading it word for word because it does drag on, but I'll give you the highlights for LEAPS. For the month of October, LEAPS has a red, on your right-hand side, you'll see arrests, traffic stops. They're in green squares. That's where I'll be reading from to give you a quick highlight of what's going on with LEAPS. They led to, using LEAPS, it led to 19 arrests, 29 traffic stops, 15 burglaries and robberies, 35 fights and assaults, 9 persons with a gun, and 24 other offenses. If we go to the next page, I'll give you a breakdown for an overall out of 100%. 39% were involving people, 21% were involving arrests and detentions, 10% were involving property crimes, 21% involving vehicles, and the other 9% is observations. Now, with LEAPS, we're going to be using LEAPS to do the homeless count as well. So it's a nice little feature that we have and allows us to conduct our homeless count a little bit more accurately for the upcoming count. Does anyone have any questions regarding LEAPS? If not, that'll be the end of my presentation for Lancaster Station.
Yeah, just a quick question for actually all of these reports. Can you give us kind of like a summary of the different types of crimes that are included in each category?
Yes, absolutely.
If you can bring that just next time.
Absolutely. Yes,
I can. Help us better understand the numbers.
Are you asking more of a definition of the type of crime or just
yes.
a quick explanation of what the crime means, correct?
Yes.
Okay, understood. Yes, absolutely. I can do that for you.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, if you want, you can get that to Ms. Stenback and she can distribute it to all of us.
Awesome. I'll incorporate it in the next slides for the next coming report.
Okay, any other questions for the Sheriff's Department? Okay, well, moving on to probation. Thank you, Deputy Green.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Hey, good morning, everyone. And, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all that good stuff coming up and during the holidays. Hopefully everybody has a safe one. Currently, right now, we're going to kind of a calm. We're frustrated as well, listening to the sheriff discuss, and Mr. Brown discuss some of the behaviors being allowed through the county and the state with some of the criminal behavior that we're experiencing. And you turn the TV on and you're hearing all these arrests on these smash and grabs, but yet they're all released, it seems like, before they even have a sandwich in county jail. So there's frustrations there, and there's not really much to point to other than the legislation's well above us. We had a situation recently where the person was on formal probation. I think he's still at large, or he's still the person of interest for the LAPD officer that was killed by his stepson. That person was released off of probation by the courts on November 9th. So it was a couple of weeks before the incident unfortunately occurred, that situation. So we have probation officers with formal grants of probation requesting violations, and it seems like the courts are terminating them for some reason or some type of things versus the violation in some cases. And so we are having our similar frustrations in our work as well. With our units of AB1I in our bureau, we seem to be doing good. We have some, we're still building those communication levels. It seems like people are now starting to come in. We're getting busier with our walk-ins and stuff at our office since we've been open since October 1st. Our statistics seem like we're having a good effect on some of the things that we're doing. We have our special enforcement officer units going out, making random compliance checks and things of that nature. So we're doing full-blown compliance checks. We have our warrant unit working with the Sheriff's Department with Deputy Turner. And we have, like I said, we have quite a few members of the community that work in our office that are with Special Enforcement Office unit that are going out in our communities, making sure that we're doing our due diligence with probation, compliance checks and things of that nature. Once a month, we provide our bureau with, I would say, 15 maybe, what we consider complex cases. So we identify someone with a red flag of behavior or some type of this or that may be a safety issue. And then we submit them, and then they'll sort through them, and they'll pick the most concerning, and then they'll put those on their list to go and do a full compliance. So we're being very proactive in our assessments of people that are giving us that reason to believe that they may be up to no good. So other than that, everything's pretty much status quo. Our numbers are still lower than they once upon a time were prior to COVID. So we're able to see people more often, interact with the people we supervise more often, which hopefully by that action is keeping them more on a path towards success versus a return to county jail or state prison and the acts that put them there. So far so good. And we're hoping next year to, if COVID will allow us to open up our doors even more, to have another fair, so we can do employment for people that are less fortunate or have made bad decisions, to start opening those type of avenues for them as well. We're actually seeing an increase in our people we supervise gain employment. We're starting to see that little by little. There's a little trend from talking to the probation officers that I supervise and that work in this office, that seems like more of them have more people actually working. It's, once we'd have like one or two, now we're having 5 or 6 people on their case, so that are gaining employment. And one of the conversations I'm having with our leadership is to open our office on Saturdays to do contact visits to people that can't report during the week because they are fully employed, working 40 plus hours a week. So it's a good thing. So far so good. We're moving in the right direction, it seems like. We did our community outreach last month. We were able to provide 16 families with Thanksgiving dinners and full meals and things for their family that were less fortunate. We try to do that through the people we supervise, to show our support for them, and hopefully that'll be another step in the direction of building that trust that we are looking out for their best interest. So again, we're trying to be more proactive in their life so they can see that it's okay to do good. So those are where we're at right now. Our housing is full. We have 3 houses out here in the Palmdale, Lancaster area that we have full staff there. So we're doing good with our housing. We have some people that are taking advantage of the extended housing once they get off probation, because they have gained full employment, and they're also showing that they're making efforts to save up for maybe a first and last for their apartment that they're going to transition to on their very own. So one of the things that we do offer is that extended stay, even if they're off probation, in a sober living home that we have contracted with, because they have proven by check stubs, financial statements, that they are working in that direction to have their own place and their own responsibilities. So, and that's pretty much what I have for you, unless you have questions for me. I can't hear you.
Thank you.
There you go.
I just want to say that's wonderful to hear. We often talk about the enforcement side, but it's so important to help people who are trying to turn their lives around and get on track, to be there for them and know they're not alone. So thank you for your good work in that regard.
I'm only as good as my team, but I appreciate the comment, and I'll share that with them as well. And again, have a safe and wonderful holiday season for all of you and your families.
Thank you, sir. You too.
Thanks.
Okay, I see Officer Michaud is here from the CHP. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. Still doing a little Tips for Kids work, trying to get real busy this holiday season. Captain Bronier couldn't be with us. He's up in Sacramento, so he asked me to sit in. And I do have our AVCHP's November stats. Unfortunately, they're still on the high side. Our total number of crashes for the month of November, we have 174. Out of those, 3 were fatalities. 13 involved major injuries, and 14 were DUI involved. As far as our DUI arrests, we have 1 felony DUI arrest for the month of November, 60 misdemeanor alcohol DUI arrests. We've got 5 drug DUI arrests and 0 combos, being alcohol and drugs together. Our officers recovered 8 stolen vehicles this month, or in the month of November, and we had 2 arrests for grand theft auto. No guns have been recovered in any of those arrests or impounds for the month of November. We've had 3 domestic violence investigations, 0 assaults, 1 battery on a police officer investigation, 2 obstruction investigations, and 1 resisting. Our homeless contacts for the month of November, we've had 3 different contact days where we've gone in. We're still working with Caltrans on attempting to get services. One of our sergeants is in charge of that, and they go in with Caltrans, attempt to offer services through Grace Resources, Valley Oasis, things like that. They accompany us sometimes during those cleanup sessions. And for the month of November, there were 3 special enforcement details where we were concentrating on speed. I know for the month of December, we have even more for the month. Tickets and the speeds are still up, the crashes are still up, and unfortunately, we have broken last year's fatality record already, and we still have an additional month to finish out. Currently, I would like to thank all of you that were able to support us and attend the unveiling of our Fallen Officer Memorial. The captain is very appreciative of both Lancaster and Palmdale and all of our community partners that supported us. And we are continuing our Chips for Kids campaign, going out there to get toys. We currently have 32 of our community organizations requesting toys for the holidays. So we'll be out there for the next 2 weeks collecting toys for that. Are there any questions?
Yes, I had one question, Monique. What is the current process to determine if someone is driving under the influence of marijuana when they're pulled over? How is that sobriety test or blood test? How is that working?
Okay, so our officers, a while back, our department actually instituting a training. It's called A-Ride. So every one of our officers has that initial drug recognition training. They're not drug recognition experts, though we do have those here at the office. So officers have that initial training where they can recognize the signs and symptoms of marijuana or barbiturates or narcotics, things like that, so that they can begin their DUI investigation just as a alcohol DUI investigation with the same standardized tests. However, with the drugs, the breath test is not allowed. It is a blood or a urine test. So that's where they differ. Our officers can call in a partner that is a drug recognition expert, so that it would be 2 of those reports. But they do rule out alcohol first. So it's still the FSTs, still those standardized tests that we issue on the side of the road. But we've all gone through that training. I remember Assemblyman Lackey had been working up in SAC about getting, an additional standardized test for marijuana, particularly since that is the most common right now. But it does rely on our officers' observations and being able to rule out that alcohol impairment if it is indeed marijuana.
And what is the legal amount of marijuana they're allowed to have in their blood system and still be able to drive?
That, I believe, is the question that they are still trying to get an official answer on. It's not like with alcohol where you have the 0.08%. BAC, but I know that's what they're working on. They want to know how much of that THC in your system is it before it's impaired. That's why they rely on the officer's observations of the person's driving to be able to articulate in court that person was impaired and unable to drive safely.
And what is the success rate of an individual being arrested for driving under the influence of strictly marijuana? They go to court and they're actually processed for a DUI. What is the eviction rate on that?
That you would have to check with the DA's office.
Okay.
They would have those statistics.
And I'm not trying to put you at the spot. I'm just trying to understand how they're dealing with the marijuana issue. Most notably, my vehicle was in the shop and the dealership paid for a rental car. And my wife tried 4 different rental cars, and every one of them had a very heavy smell of marijuana. And it just made me wonder, what is the process?
No, we understand, and that is the problem that we're running to. We need that legal limit, and we need a way to test for that limit, and that's what they've been working on. And as far as I know, we're not close to having that just yet. So it's still based on the officer's testimony, their experience, and being able to articulate why they made the arrest that they did.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you answering my question.
Not a problem. Any other questions? All right.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Sherwood.
Good morning. Okay, I did want to respond. There was someone had brought up, I think it was the probation officer, regarding the issue with probations being terminated. There was a new law that was passed. It's recently, and it modified the terms of probations. They used to be they could be as much as up to 5 years. Generally, it was 3 years, and there are a few exceptions. I think domestic violence cases and a couple other limited exceptions. But when that law was passed, it was actually retroactive. So what happened is you had thousands of people who were on probation, their probations terminated as a matter of law. So they would come in, and it's been actually a problem for us because they would come in to court and we would have a situation where maybe their current offense was relatively minor, but they were on felony probation. So, the decision was to go ahead and just do a probation violation. Well, come to find out their probation had terminated as a matter of law. And there's some intricacies in that in terms of, well, what, was their probation violated for some other issue? And so was it in sort of a limbo land? And so therefore the term wasn't tolling, but those are some legal issues that become somewhat problematic. So part of the problem we're having is you had thousands of people who were on probation and their probations terminated as a matter of law. So that's been an issue and probably why that in that one case that the probation officer was talking about, Mr. Sepulveda, regarding the court terminating probation. That's what's going on, is they're being terminated as a matter of law. So that's that. There's a new jury selection law that's going into effect that I haven't heard really anybody talk about. That's going to be a huge issue for the prosecutors selecting juries, and that's going to start next year. And the only other thing I wanted to comment on was the marijuana DUI. That's also those are a problem for us. We had a case maybe a year and a half ago, with an individual driving 90 miles an hour down a residential street with marijuana in their system, odor of marijuana in their car, marijuana in the vehicle. They lost control of the car and hit I believe it was a 13 or 14-year-old girl at 90 miles an hour, obviously killed her instantly. That case ended up going to trial, and the jury acquitted of we actually charged him with murder, acquitted of that, and also gross vehicular manslaughter, because we couldn't really establish that the marijuana was what was causing the erratic driving as opposed to the person just driving fast. And so we had just a case yesterday, an evading case with marijuana that was dismissed because the deputies weren't able to, because there was an accident and the person was taken to the hospital, they weren't really able to do the DUI investigation that they would, the DUI investigation that they would normally be able to do. We don't have any sort of standardized testing for marijuana. And that's a 2-hour conversation in and of itself to determine whether the person was under the influence. They weren't comfortable testifying under oath that the person wasn't able to, safely operate a motor vehicle solely because of the marijuana that they had consumed. And so we weren't able to proceed on that. So some of the, that just from a prosecution standpoint, some of the issues that Officer Michaud pointed out, we're dealing with those too from the prosecution standpoint. So unless anybody has any questions of me regarding those issues, I can give you sort of the statistics that we have that I've been trying to put together for all of you to try to give you a better idea of what we're doing in terms of filings, hopefully give you some better information.
What's the new jury law, Mr. Sherwood? You mentioned something about jury selection. What is it?
So basically what it's going to do is going to make it it's going to make it, from what I'm being told and from some of the trainings that we've been having, it's going to make it very difficult for us to excuse jurors based on their inability to be fair, because we're being scrutinized at a level that prevents us from asking certain questions and prevents us from excusing jurors that we feel can't be fair in a particular case. And so, and a violation is essentially, it comes down to a situation where we could be not, I don't know, disbarred, maybe a little extreme, but certainly our ethics, we could be questioned on ethics violation for excusing jurors for either racial reasons or because of membership in a particular suspect class, and our ability to justify those decisions is being taken away. And so some of the advice that we're getting is we're unable to exercise peremptory challenges because of the concern that the exercise of those peremptory challenges would result in the jury being excused and us being accused of excusing jurors for non-legitimate reasons or reasons not based on cause. In other words, the juror can't be fair. They were excusing them because of their membership in some sort of protected class. So we can't ask those questions. So we run into a situation where, because of potential liability, we're potentially not going to be able to ask questions, and thereby the jury be composed of people that can't really be fair. So that's the concern that's being raised. Whether it's a legitimate concern or not, that's something that we'll find out here in about 30 days. So,
other than the inquiry upon which to base your decision for a peremptory challenge, the peremptory challenges are still intact?
They still are, but it's our ability to exercise them in a way that is not in violation of the law. Right, so we're being scrutinized to a level where we may not be able to explain the justification in a way that satisfies the law, and so so therefore, given the liability that we may incur, the suggestion has been that we don't exercise any peremptory challenges because we may be scrutinized to the point where we run afoul of the law. And so that's the concern, is that we're not able to exercise peremptory challenges. We're not able to ask certain questions to ascertain whether the jurors should be excused for cause. And thereby we get juries that are composed of people who, for a variety of reasons, might not be fair jurors in a particular case because of biases or other things.
And I understand that, and I understand there's some limitation on the questions that you might be able to ask, but peremptory challenges are still completely completely discretionary. In other words, there is no process to examine the basis of your peremptory challenge.
That used to be the case. That's what's changing. So the peremptory challenges still exist, But when you exercise a peremptory challenge, it used to be that the criteria under which you were judged was relatively broad, right? So, for example, a juror might express a concern about the criminal justice system, right? And so based on that, we could exercise a peremptory challenge that this person isn't comfortable with the criminal justice system, so they may not be a very good juror. That's now no longer a basis under which we can exercise a peremptory challenge. So you have a juror who says, I don't trust the criminal justice system. Well, now I can't excuse that juror as a peremptory challenge. I could make a challenge for cause. Maybe the judge grants it, maybe the judge doesn't. But essentially, what the peremptory challenge still exists, but because of the criteria that we're now governed by in terms of when we can exercise those, the argument that's being made is that peremptory challenges, practically speaking, no longer exist.
So this was a law that came from Sacramento, a change in the law?
Yes.
Wasn't there, to sort of go back to a different subject, wasn't there an effort on the part of the Association of Assistant District Attorneys to complain about or challenge the DA? What happened to that?
You mean the recall, the first of my boss?
I think that's correct.
Well, I mean, I only know what's been covered in the media, which was that there weren't enough signatures to for the recall election.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Brown, I'd be happy to talk to you about that outside of the meeting. Just because that's a political process, I don't know how much we can get into it here, but I can talk to you about that separately.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question for you, sir, because I don't know if it's correct information and figured just ask you. So obviously, as everybody knows, we had an extremely shocking crime occur recently where someone murdered their own children and the children's grandmother. There was something that was going around social media saying that under the DA's new sentencing guidelines, that he wouldn't be charged with special circumstances and would wind up getting out of prison when he's still in his 40s. Has the decision been made on charging him and what the sentencing would be based on those charges?
Well, the Antelope Valley branch, we weren't, I wasn't consulted regarding that. The decision was made that case was going to be handled by a special unit downtown, a family violence unit. So I wasn't privy to any of or consulted regarding any of the decision-making with respect to what was charged. What I believe there have been 5 counts of first-degree murder. Each count carries a sentence of 25 years to life. So I would think that the maximum sentence would be 125 years to life. My understanding is that under our DA's policy, there are no special circumstances that could be filed. So it wouldn't be an LWOP case, but if it's a first-degree murder, each first-degree murder crime without any of the firearm allegations, right? So if there were firearm allegations, which we are allowed to add, and I would presume would have been added, those would carry a maximum of an additional 10 years. So you're looking at based on my calculations, and again, I'm not privy to any of that information, but it would be 125 years to life plus 50 years, so 175 years to life, if my math is correct.
Are those usually done concurrently or at the same time?
Those would be consecutive. I don't even know if I'd have to do some research to see whether the judge could legally run those concurrently. I think there is probably some discretion with the court to run those concurrently, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But knowing our courts up here, I would be surprised, but certainly it's a possibility. But the way I look at it, I'm calculating it as 35 years to life for each murder, 25 to life if it's first degree, plus 10 years for the gun allegation, assuming that was added. And I haven't seen a copy of the complaint, so I'm not exactly sure what was charged.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go over the stats. I'll try to go over quickly. I'm still trying to put them together in a way that I think best gives you all information to give you some idea about what crimes are occurring more frequently or less frequently over the period of time. So right now I only have stats for October and November. I'm working on trying to go back in time, gather up some of those stats and try to present them in a way that will give you some perspective. But and I've kind of organized them in the way that the Sheriff's Department is presenting their stats, so you'll have some correlation. So for example, in October, I'm grouping them by burglaries, and I'm not distinguishing between residential and commercial. So residential obviously is a burglary of a home. Commercial is a burglary of a business. We don't see almost very few commercial burglaries do we see anymore, because commercial burglaries, we used to see those in almost all of the business, like you go into a Best Buy or whatever, and you'd enter with the intent to steal. That was a commercial burglary. By operation of law, those have all been made petty thefts now, as long as the business is open. So for it to be a commercial burglary, generally speaking, you're breaking into a business at night. Well, nobody's doing that anymore because they can just go in during the day, and it's a petty theft. So I haven't seen a lot of commercial. I don't see very many commercial burglaries. So when I talk about burglaries, residential and or commercial, those are going to be predominantly residential. So for the month of October, we had 8. For the month of November, we had 9. Robberies, obviously, robberies are going to include any theft by force. I've not divided between strong arm robberies, which are robberies that don't involve a weapon, and armed robberies, which are robberies that involve a weapon. I can probably do that for you if you would like. But so, for example, for the month of October, we filed 10 robberies. For the month of November, we filed 9. I've grouped attempted murders and murders into one category. I can divide those up. In October, we had 1 murder. In November, there were 6, but 5 of those were the case that we just talked about. Sex crimes, I've not distinguished between adult sex crimes and child sex crimes. I should be able to do that if you want. In October, there were 3. In November, there were 3. Felony assaults, those are going to be assaults with a deadly weapon, or felony assaults which involve force likely to produce great bodily injury. So that doesn't necessarily mean there was an injury, but the force used was sufficient such that it could have caused great bodily injury. Those will also include any felony assaults on police officers, which again, I can distinguish if you would like me to do that. And in October, we filed 6 felonious assaults. In November, we filed 15. Domestic violence cases, those are going to be felony domestic violence cases. The violence involved the infliction of force that resulted in some sort of traumatic injury. Traumatic injury just means a visible injury. These seem low, but they seem pretty consistent with the numbers that the Sheriff's Department brought out. There were 2 in October and 4 in November. I'm going to double check to see that those numbers are accurate, because those seem low, but those also seem consistent with the numbers that the Sheriff's Department was just provided. Grand thefts are going to be any thefts involving greater than $950. In October, there were 3. In November, there were 1. Auto burglaries, I think those go without any further explanation. In October, there were 7. In November, there were 8. Illegal firearms, those are going to be cases where involving felon with a firearm. For the most part, any negligent discharge of a firearm, that's going to be predominantly what I'm talking about, not assaults with firearms, and obviously not any sort of other crime involving firearm. So predominantly what I'm going to be talking about are felons in possession of firearms. In October, there were 8, and in November, there were 7. Criminal threats, I think that goes without saying anything additional. 4 in October, 6 in November. Felony DUIs, and I don't believe this includes the CHP stats. I believe these were only the stats for the Sheriff's Department. 3 in October and one in November. I can get the misdemeanor DUI. I believe I can get the misdemeanor DUI stats if you would like to know those. Sales cases, so possession for sales of narcotics. In October, there were 7, and in November, there were 3. And the last one I have is arson, 0 in October, and we filed 1 in November. So those are the stats that I think would help explain what we're doing in terms of our filings. The only really question I have for all of you is those are by incident. So for example, if there's a domestic violence case where the person also threatens the victim and let's say is found with a firearm and they're a felon, so we would charge them with domestic violence, felon with a firearm, and criminal threats. I'm only categorizing that as one incident and taking the most serious charge. In this case, I would use the domestic violence charge. That would be one incident involving domestic violence. And another example would be in a robbery case where there are 3 victims of a robbery, let's say. I'm only counting that as one robbery because it's one incident involving 3 victims. I can change that if you think that would be better. That would better reflect the statistics that you would like to know. And so I'll shut up now. If you have any questions or comments on any of that, let me know.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right.
Let's see, public safety update.
There are no items for discussion.
Oh, okay, is there a way to get an update on what's happening with the, I know is in development on the hybrid law enforcement model. Is there anyone that can speak to that?
Not at this time, but we can get that prepared for the next meeting.
That would be great, thank you. Okay, state legislative update. Do we have anyone from Congressman Garcia's office or Assemblyman Lackey's office? I'm not sure if we do. There's really nothing, no update with them being out of session. And the same goes for me over at Senator Wilk's office. Just a brief announcement, we'll be having somebody else from Senator Wilk's office making those presentations from now on, as I've accepted a new position. And we'll be leaving Senator Wilk's office at the end of next week.
And where will you be going?
I'm going to be the new executive director for AV Edge.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Drew.
Well deserved.
Well
excited about it.
Right.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I believe Brandon Roque will be making the presentations here from now on behalf of Senator Wilk.
Drew, I am here. Pam from Assemblyman Lackey's office.
Oh, you are? Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Okay, oh, Pam, go right ahead.
All right. Just a greeting from the Assemblyman and his best wishes for a happy, healthy holiday for everyone. He's in Sacramento, so I'm giving you some updates that we have. And I appreciated the things that the Sheriff's Department said and CHP, because that's similar to what I'm going to talk about. One of the conversations that has gained a lot of attention recently is the rise of organized retail theft. The governor's plan is that he has already directed CHP to increase its presence at major retail sites, and he vows to include increases in the next budget to combat retail theft. Prop 47 has received a lot of attention as the impetus for the rise of retail theft. In 2014, as a summary, voters approved Proposition 47, which recategorized nonviolent offenses as misdemeanors instead of felonies. Shoplifting and theft crimes valued less than $950 would no longer be charged as felonies. Currently, Assemblyman Kiley from Roseville is looking to repeal Prop 47 this coming session. It is likely to be met with strong opposition. Prop 47 isn't all to blame, however. Many of the organized crimes have targeted luxury retailers that far exceed the $950 threshold. Attention has begun to focus on district attorneys who refuse to prosecute offenders, which in effect encourages this type of behavior to continue without penalty. Last year, Assemblyman Lackey had a bill that would make it easier to prosecute vehicle smash and grabs, but that bill was killed by the majority party in Sacramento. I also wanted to comment on another committee the Assemblyman sits on, which is the Budget Sub 4 Committee, and it oversees EDD. Our office is still receiving around 50 requests for assistance per week, which is a concern, but what's notable to all of you is that they are 90% fraudulent. People from other states, other countries with wages earned outside of California looking to backdate their claims. Truly, the criminals are becoming so bold that they are calling and asking the assistance of the state senator and assemblyman to assist them in their criminal pursuits. The assemblyman will continue to hold ED's feet to the fire with an ongoing audit that is not completed yet. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much, Pam. I'm not sure if it was announced at our last meeting, but Vanessa Wilk is retiring, and Pam is the new district director for Assemblyman Lackey. So congratulations and welcome.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, we have public business from the floor on non-agenda items. Do we have any speaker cards?
We do not have any speaker cards within the chambers, but for anyone participating telephonically and wishing to comment on non-agendized items, please press *9. I will announce the last 4 digits of your call-in number when it is your turn to speak. Please state your name and eliminate any background noise. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. State law prohibits the commission from taking action on items not listed on the agenda. Please press *9 at this time. We have no speakers.
Okay, thank you. Having reached, commissioner comments. Let's start with Commissioner Medrano.
No comments aside from congratulations to you, Drew, on your new position, and a warm welcome to Pam.
Oh, thank you. Let's see, Dr. Brown.
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Hurd.
I'm sorry. Oh, nothing further. I just want to say Merry Christmas, all of you guys, and thanks for the wonderful work that you've been doing throughout the years. And hopefully everybody have a wonderful time, okay, during the holidays. See you all in next year. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Commissioner Harris.
To echo Mr. Hur, hope everyone has a safe and happy holiday season. Thank you all for being a part of this, and congratulations, Drew. I think that's excellent. I wish you the best, and I'll see everybody in January.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Vice Chairman Little.
Echo that same thing. Congratulations, Drew. City staff, fantastic. Endless job that you guys do is phenomenal. Sheriff's Department, Mr. Sherwood, Mr. Sloboda, and the CHP, incredible work that you guys do. Drew, congratulations again. Happy holidays to everybody, and have a safe time out there.
Great, thank you. Yes, and I would just add, particularly to all our law enforcement officers, extra, prayers and thoughts for safety this holiday season as you're out on duty, while a lot of us are able to enjoy our dinners with families and be safe out there and enjoy the holidays. With that, if there's no objection, we will adjourn. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.